Hi, my name is Martin Presse, and welcome to our YouTube channel. This is the Cornerstone International Community College YouTube channel, and today we're going to be talking immigration, everything you need to know about coming to school here, coming to Vancouver, coming to Canada, and experiencing the most incredible Canadian experience. So, what are we going to do today? Well, we've got Francisco here with us. He's a good friend of mine, and he works with me at Cornerstone, and we're going to spend some time with you to answer as many questions as humanly possible about how you can come here and study in Canada. So welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm perfect. Thank you, Martin, for the opportunity.
All right.
Yeah, let's talk about immigration.
Let's do it. So we have a list of questions here, and I think we should start with the basics a little bit. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is that there's a lot of new regulations happening that are coming from the Canadian government. They change almost every single month. I know you and I talked a little bit about the new regulations, and you do a great job letting us know and letting the students know some of the new regulations. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, well, we have around 1,000 new regulations, but today we're going to talk about just maybe 5 or so.
Good.
But yeah, you're right. Every month we have new regulations coming, especially 2024 has been a year in which IRCC Immigration Canada released many changes. We started in, for example, January 2024 with new requirements, new financial requirements. So now people need to show more money, more financial resources to apply for a study permit, for example. And then month after month, we have more and more regulations. We understand as professionals in the education industry, we do understand that you guys must have a lot of questions. It's hard to keep on, so it's good that we have this space to share with you, with the students, potential students, and even recent graduates.
Where can people find this information? Like, for example, I did hear about that students need to have more money. They need to prove that they have what is required to stay in Canada financially. Where do they find that information?
Yeah, I'd say the first point of contact is IRCC, Immigration Canada official website. They're out there like thousands of websites, but you guys need to be careful and always search for the official information. What we do share at Cornerstone is the official websites all the time, or of course you can ask me. I'm here at Cornerstone every day. You can contact me on email. We do have drop-in sessions on Thursdays, so you guys can connect. And it's Yeah, we do have, for example, for current students, we have these new that they launched in early this year, Immigration Canada, about the number of hours that the students can work during the academic session. So under regular circumstances is 20 hours per week that the students can work. But they mentioned, IRCC mentioned that in fall, later this fall, we want to have students can work up to 24 hours a week.
Okay.
But pay attention, this is not confirmed yet, so we still need to wait for the final, decision of Immigration Canada, but it will happen soon.
Right.
So that's another one, and there's many more. Let's see. We don't want to keep this session too long, but let's see what else we can talk about, like here and there.
Excellent. Okay. One of the questions that I get quite often in the hallway, for example, is what if during the Christmas holidays, for example, or what if the school is closed for a week due to some holiday festival? Can students actually work more than the 20 or 24 hours when there's a holiday period?
Yeah, that's correct. We call it the schedule breaks, right? We do have Christmas. Some schools have reading week, or we may have other type of breaks. You need to confirm with your school, confirm with Cornerstone when the schedule break is happening, and during those days you can work full time. meaning more than 20 hours per week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that really helps because it is an expensive city. And I'm all about honesty, integrity, and ethics, and making sure that we give our students the right information, timely information. And the last thing we want to do is have anybody come here and really get into a little bit of trouble because maybe they don't have enough money, they didn't save enough money. And so there's a reason why the government of Canada, it's not Cornerstone, it's the government of Canada who said, look, we really want to make sure that our students are successful. And to do that, one of the things they have to do is they have to have a little bit of money when they come here. Otherwise, they might get into a little bit of trouble. So if you're out there thinking, well, that's just Cornerstone, it's actually not. It is from the government of Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you made a point here. It's like, in order to have a great experience, great academic experience, you must have some sort of savings, right? Because if you come here, you need to pay for your tuition fee, you need to pay for your rent, you need to pay for your food, and also, if you're lucky, you're gonna find a job like right away.
Yeah.
But also, you need to have some sort of support there in your savings account, so you can, pay and like still have a regular life.
Good.
Without having to work.
Good. Well, these are things that we're going to talk about today is actually finding a job, making sure that you have that support system, the job interview process. And so what I want to talk about first, though, is some terminology. One of the things that, one of the questions I get a lot of is, for example, what is a PALS letter? P-A-L-S. I hear this all the time. What does that mean exactly?
Exactly. Yeah, good. So this PAL, P-A-L, was actually one of the new regulations that IRCC, Government of Canada, imposed this year. PAL stands for Provincial Attestation Letter,
Okay.
right? So what Canada implemented this year is a quota. Now we have an exact number of international students that Canada is going to admit into the country. And so in order to apply for a study permit, your institution, your school needs to give you a provincial attestation letter, right?
Good.
So it means that you have secured a spot in the international students pool to come to Canada. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. PGWP.
Okay.
What does this mean exactly? I hear this one all the time.
Yeah, this one is very popular. So PGWP stands for Postgraduate Work Permit. Some institutions, after you complete your academic program, may be eligible to give you a postgraduate work permit,
Okay.
right? So it's, in other words, it's just basically a work permit, but after you graduate. That's why it's postgraduate work permit. Yeah.
All right. So can you explain to our listeners the difference between a postgraduate work permit and a work permit?
Sure. So yeah, postgraduate work permit is a type of work permit, but we have hundreds of work permits,
Yes.
maybe dozens. We have work permits that are linked to companies. We have work permits that are based on free trade agreements, with Canada and some other countries. We have work permits that are based on the language you speak, for example, French.
Right.
There's work permits based on, being the spouse of an international student as well. So there's so many different types of work permits, but as the name says, having a work permit means that you can work full time.
Okay.
And then the work permit will determine if you can work anywhere or if you can work only in a specific company or even occupation.
All right. So one of the things that you and I were talking about just before we came on the air today was, is it possible to get a work permit when you are not in Canada? So right now I'm living in Mexico and I want a work permit before I come to Canada. How does that work?
Yeah, there is possible. It's not. It's a bit rare in the sense that it doesn't happen quite often.
Right.
But there are some ways you can get a work permit applying from outside of Canada, right? One of the ways might be, for example, finding a job offer. You can apply for a job in Canada, being outside of Canada, right? And if you are selected, if you pass the interview and all the the formalities, then you can apply for a work permit. That's one of examples. Even you can apply for permanent residency being outside of Canada, right? I know people applying for immigration programs outside of Canada, and they were selected, invited, they submitted all the documents, and the first day they land in Canada, they landed as permanent residents.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. As I
Yeah,
mentioned,
yeah.
we need to work on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is possible.
So it sounds to me like the work permit is available to people who are highly qualified. We were talking about doctors and lawyers and accountants and this sort of thing. But even then, those people, it's not easy to get a work permit before coming to Canada. Is that right?
Yeah, it really depends on the profile of the
Okay.
person, individual. Obviously, the more skilled you are, the more educated you are. For example, if you have completed a PhD,
Right.
or if you speak very well English, maybe some French, the official languages of Canada. It really depends on the profile. But yeah, and something that I always like to highlight is that you don't need to be highly skilled to find a job in Canada and to have a work permit.
Okay.
Canada has some immigration programs now and then, about different occupations. So we
Okay.
have sometimes, throughout Canada's history, we've had work permits for caregivers.
Yes,
We've
yes.
had work permits for early childhood educators.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't need to be super highly skilled
Right.
people, but still, like it does help.
So students come here, they have their study permit, and then they get their work permit maybe later on.
Mhm.
Or is that right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it depends on the academic program. For example, here at Cornerstone, you will get your study permit and your CUP work permit because all of our
Right.
programs have this CUP component. So, which means that you need to work certain number of hours to complete the program, right? So, students would come here with their study permit and the CUP work permit.
Okay.
Once they're here, why it's easier, because then you can start working. You can knock some doors.
Mhm.
You can show that you're a good member for the company.
Yeah.
And if things go well, you can be sponsored to get a work permit,
There
right,
you
with
go.
that company.
Well, you just answered my next question. I was going to ask about sponsorships. And I know that I hear this every single day around the college is that students say, well, my company's going to sponsor me. That worries me a little bit because I hear this all the time. And then the company does not end up sponsoring the student. Are you getting the same feedback? Are you getting the same experience? Or are many of our students getting sponsorships? Like, what's your feedback on that?
Yeah, it happens more often than we know, but same thing, it depends on the profile. Something that I've seen is that the company that wants to sponsor the student to perform this particular occupation, then the student doesn't have any work experience related,
Right.
So then it may make the process more complicated.
Okay.
So whenever you are looking for a sponsorship, a company sponsorship, needs to be in a position in which you have work experience or studies related.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you an example. Sometimes we have architects, right, educated abroad, and they're searching here, or they start working here in Canada in a human resources position, for example, and then the company is willing to do everything, to sponsor the person, but this person, this architect, has no work experience in human resources or any education, formal
Right.
education. So then the process may not succeed.
That's right.
So we need to pay attention to that.
One of the questions we just got was, how do I apply for a work permit?
Okay, yeah, as I was mentioning,
Yeah.
there's dozens of work permits.
Yeah.
A good start would be to finding a job offer, finding a job position here, and then most likely there are going to be ways to apply for a work permit.
I'm just assuming it's on a website somewhere.
Yeah, it's on in Immigration Canada website. That section of work permits is like length, it's very large.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you really go there, you can find, and there's some wizards tools in which you can answer some questions, and it's gonna give you a recommendation.
Okay, excellent. One of the questions we got before we went on the air was, what are the academic and visa requirements for coming to Cornerstone? Do you want to address that a little bit, or?
Yeah, for sure. So in order to be eligible to get a study permit, you're going to need a few things. First, you need to be enrolled in a Canadian institution, right? Because you're going to need the letter of acceptance. You're going to need the payment receipts of the program. You need to have a valid passport, of course. We mentioned before, you need to show proof of financials, right? And a motivation letter, a very strong, motivation letter,
Right.
because you need to explain the government of Canada why you want to take this program, how this program is going to contribute to your work experience or your academic experience.
Mhm.
And something that some people miss is this temporality, right? So coming to Canada on a study permit, you need to show the government that this is 100% academic effort, and after graduation, you're gonna leave Canada.
Mhm.
At least just for the study
Mhm.
permit, initial study permit application, and then every other document that you can show to support your application. For example, any document that gives you stability, right? For
Right.
example, your academic transcript, maybe you own your property, or maybe you have employment right now. All these documents are going to be useful for your application.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of information. Yeah, it's so important. Excuse me. One of the questions we got was, I'd like to move here, but with my family. What happens when one member of the family gets a study permit or a work permit? How does that help the rest of the family?
Perfect. So it's great you mentioned this. We had this new change. That's another regulation that came out this year. It's about, I call it like a plan of like a study plan with your family, right?
Mhm.
Like one person comes to study and
Right.
the other person gets a work permit, and you can bring your children if you have. But that only works for master degree students and PhD students.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, we've got some water coming. Thank you so much, Kazi. Thank you. I knew that was going to happen someday. Thank you very much. So it is possible, and it happens all the time. I've had a number of students bring in their families.
Mhm.
Typically, what I see happening is the father will come first, and then the family comes in later. Is that typically how that happens?
We have different options here. Throughout my history at Cornerstone, I've seen like couples, for example, moving here, being both of them, students, or as you mentioned, first one person moves here as a student, then the other person joins as a visitor, and then they apply for school.
Right.
There's different combinations. It really depends on each person's profile, depending of finances, depending on the connection the person has with the home country. Sometimes it really depends on the strategy that you
Yes.
want to follow. But yeah, it is possible. And I
Okay.
mentioned this because if you want to bring your family with you, you need to show more savings to the government
Yeah.
of Canada. So sometimes the strategy is like one person comes first, and then
Yes.
the others will join later.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Scholarships. Let's talk about scholarships. We have a lot of questions regarding, I might need a scholarship to study in Canada. Does Cornerstone offer scholarships, and how does that work?
Well, I'm not 100% sure of the scholarships. I know our, student advisors
Yes.
may have more information about that. What I know for sure is Cornerstone always has this type of, support for international students. So yeah, that would be something we need to connect with
Perfect.
them. But there's always something happening in terms of different
Good.
sort of scholarships or support. Yeah.
Well, I can confirm that. When it comes to scholarships, yes, the best person to talk to is your advisor. I know that we do offer scholarships, significant scholarships, and you have to ask, and we'll certainly will help take care of that if that's the case, if that's what's needed for you. When it comes to, let's talk about careers a little bit, and you do your best, and then I'll throw in my opinion as well. Somebody wants to know about jobs in information technology.
Mhm.
In your opinion, in Canada, particularly Vancouver, what is the IT industry like in Vancouver?
It's huge,
Yeah.
especially Vancouver is the IT industry is huge, very popular. And connecting to immigration, which is my expertise, I can tell you that the IT industry, IT positions work very well for immigration.
Yeah.
There's a specific programs, immigration programs. In every province has their own immigration program, right?
Yeah.
So British Columbia, where we are right now, they do have this special program for IT positions. So I think like it's very positive, and every province. This is speaking of British Columbia, but I'm pretty sure like every province
Yes.
supports the IT industry with special immigration programs.
Excellent,
Yeah.
and I agree. That was my past life. I was an IT guy, and I really believe that in Canada, if you have an IT background, if you don't have a job, it's because you don't want one. And I know that sounds like an extravagant statement to make, but I've lived in 3 different provinces in this big, beautiful country, and just having an IT background really helped significantly. So if that's the case for you, I think that you're well positioned to come to Canada and find work. What we offer here at Cornerstone for people with IT backgrounds is if you need help with ESL, you just want to maybe help, you need some help with your English, improve your English a little bit, and then get your first IT job. I think that's an excellent plan because I think confidence is sometimes an issue that our students have. They're not quite sure, they're not quite confident with their English, especially when it comes to using technology and English. I call it ESL tech, basically, so you can speak the language, speak the lingo. But once you've got that confidence with you and that you can speak the language and speak the vocabulary of technology, Vancouver is just a great place. And since we're talking about other provinces, in your opinion, tell us about living or moving across Canada once you have finished your course. So you come to Cornerstone and you finish maybe one of our IT programs or business programs. Are students able to move around Canada, live throughout Canada? Like, what is your advice for that?
Yeah, it happens a lot. I've met a few students, like more than a few students moving provinces. What I always suggest them is like, don't move unless you find a job, right? Because I think they need to do some research about the industry they're looking at, the province, even the city, because if you move to a community, even within BC or to another province that doesn't have a lot of jobs in the area you're looking for, then you're gonna be struggling. But yeah, it happens. It happens, and then generally speaking, the smaller the province or the smaller the community, the city, the more chances of companies willing to sponsor people, right?
Yes.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I have a lot of students that have moved up north where Santa Claus lives, Northwest Territories, Yellowknife, Whitehorse, these kinds of places, the Yukon. And is it true that if the further north you go, maybe is it a little bit easier to get your PR?
It is, generally speaking, yes, because the requirements tend to be lower. This is an example. Imagine British Columbia will ask you for having English level, let's say 8 out of 12, but if you move to the Yukon, they would ask to have English level 4.
Right.
Like sometimes it helps moving there, but I think the challenge will be finding a job because cities tend to be smaller, right?
Yes.
So just if you do your proper research or depending on your profession, your occupation, then go ahead. But yeah, you need to be careful. Do some research before moving, for sure.
Talk to Francisco. Definitely have those conversations. Now, I heard recently that, thank you, I heard recently that Halifax, and tell me if this is true or not, is encouraging. Now, Halifax, for those people who don't know, is on the eastern side of Canada. It's a very small province, a small city in a very small province, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Are they actually really pursuing students to move there and offering PRs?
They are, generally speaking, they have the Atlantic program, the Atlantic immigration program, very popular if you study over there, their support and everything. However, for this year, it is closed already.
Okay, it is.
Yeah, so, you need to check before moving. That's why I keep pointing that out. But yeah, generally speaking, they're very, very welcome. They're very friendly. Sorry, and they welcome international students. But talking about that, maybe I want to guide this a bit. That's why you need to improve your profile to be more likely to be invited. Yeah.
Okay.
So something you need to prepare. Study more. Get higher English score. Maybe learn some French. So that's what how you can become more your profile can be improved to be invited. Yeah,
I love it. So when you talk about your profile, you're talking about like your skills that you have developed, and okay, I see what you're saying. I was like, is there a website that you describe your profile? Okay, I got you now. Very good. Now, I love talking about Canada because I was born here. I've lived in 3 different provinces. Um, are there particular provinces that you would highly recommend, or are you going to say no? They're all fair and they're all just and they're all
I'd say they're all fair,
yeah.
right? It really depends on on what you like. Something I didn't know when I moved here was how bad the weather can get,
Mhm.
and that's something that you can confirm. So you really need to pay attention to that, like
Yeah.
how much are you willing to
Suffer.
suffer. I didn't want to say suffer, but yeah, yeah. Pay, take that into consideration because it's nothing like I imagined. When you search on different channels, YouTube or websites or everything, you don't know. It's hard to really
Yeah.
know until you experience it.
Yeah.
But I'd say every province has good chances depending on the industry, right?
Yeah.
If you need to, I always say, check your skills, check your profile,
Yeah.
and trying to find, for example, if we talk about the prairies, right?
Mhm.
So you will think more like, oh, people coming from the agriculture
Yes.
area or field. If you think more about the finance, maybe
Mhm.
you wouldn't move there. Maybe you plan to move to Vancouver, Toronto, things like that. That's something that you need to pay attention to,
Mhm.
and not just moving to the popular province without doing some proper research.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love Alberta. So when you talk about the prairies, he
Mhm.
means central Canada, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And we'll talk about the weather very quickly because there's more important things to talk about. But it's cold, but it's not end of the world cold. I lived in Alberta for 22 years. I grew up in Montreal, and it's sure we have rough winters, but a lot of people turn it into a little bit of an adventure. And it's part of the Canadian experience. I think it's a lot of fun, and you turn it into a lot of fun. That's why we play hockey because there's not much else to do in the winter up here. So Alberta, I think, is just a great province. There's a lot of work there, and there's a lot of opportunities in Alberta, just like there are a lot of opportunities here in Vancouver. I think it's don't always listen to the news. Check in with your friends. Check in with people who work here, people like Francisco and myself. As a teacher for 4 years and 10 years, actually, teacher. Oh my God, it's been 10 years. My students have found work, and a lot of my students got their PRs. Usually took them 2 or 3 years. And I have one student who's a police officer in Vancouver, which is
Oh,
really
nice.
exciting to see. I have many students who are architects and engineers here in Vancouver. So absolutely, it does happen. If you find yourself working in a coffee shop for 5, 6, 7 years, go back to your profile and look at your profile and go, what's missing in my profile that's keeping me from moving up in this industry? All right, so good question. I want to get to your question right now. Can you show me that question again, please? It says, can I apply as an international student or should I go with an agency? I
Yeah.
think that's the question.
Yeah, it really depends. Agencies, what they do is giving extra support. If it's a local agency, in your home country, of course they're gonna speak your language. They're gonna give you, maybe support like finding the flight ticket, insurance, housing. But keep in mind that that's something that here at Cornerstone we do as well. So we have student advisors from like 10, 12 different places
Yes.
around the world. So I'm pretty sure we speak your language as well.
Yeah.
We can support you as well. But other than that, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most of our students go through agencies.
Mm.
That's just my impression. I'm not sure on the statistics for that, but um,
I
don't
think
know.
so. I
Yeah.
think so because they get this extra support,
Yeah.
which is always nice. And
Yeah.
then but
Okay.
it's exactly the same thing. When I moved here as an international student as well,
Yeah.
I did the process by myself, 100%.
Wow. Amazing.
Of course, at some points I felt I was a bit lost because
Yeah.
I didn't have anyone to ask.
Yeah.
But yeah, still doable. Yeah.
Next question. I want to learn English.
Mhm.
It says, can I take online classes with you?
Yes, of course. We do have English classes online. We have in person as well.
Yep.
We have this hybrid model in which you can take 2 months online and then 3 months here in Canada. So yeah,
Good.
we have it all.
So my advice is talk to your advisor. Talk to your advisor. All these questions, a lot of the questions that we got are very simple, but they're really great questions. You just need to reach out to your agency, who will reach out to an advisor, and all these are fundamental questions. They're important questions, but they can all be answered through your agency or through your advisor. And job hunting. Thank you. We've got somebody just off camera who's helped me out here. This is really helpful. Job hunting. At Cornerstone, we help students find jobs. How do we do that? Co-op. You want to talk about the co-op a little bit?
Yeah, we do have the career services department. They do have a lot of resources, like one-on-ones with students. They will check your resume, they will check your cover letter, they will give you advice on what to say during the interviews, what not to say,
Yes.
like all these protocols that we do have in Canada. It might sound logic, but it might be super different on how we do things in other countries.
Absolutely.
So yeah, even like sending an email, a follow-up email after the
Yeah.
interview, things that when you arrive you don't know.
Yeah.
So the career services department can help you out.
Yeah.
And also they do have fairs, the job fairs. We do have companies coming here on campus to hire students, and there's a bunch of resources that they can get.
You will definitely not be left alone. We have, I know that sometimes I put on events on Saturdays. I don't do as much as I used to, but I know that we've got free events happening on the weekends. I know that Monday to Friday, we have a student learning center, and students can go in there for free and practice their job interview skills, practice their writing skills. We look over their resumes. And as an instructor, I used to ask all my students every month to send me their resume so I could look over their resume for them. So as somebody who's coming in from another country, absolutely, we're going to help you. We're going to watch out for you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you are in a comfortable, safe place. And so when you start looking for a job, you're going to be emotionally, psychologically ready to start to interview. And I'm glad that you talked about different cultures, different job interview strategies. I've had a lot of students from Japan and Korea, and their job interviews are completely different than the way that we do things in Canada. So I always thought it was very interesting when we practiced doing job interviews. People from Japan had a very different level of expectation as to how a job interview was done in Canada. So there's a lot to learn, lots and many ways to practice to make sure that you do a proper job interview here in Canada. And the next one, you want to add to that, or are you okay?
No.
You're good? All right, good. Let's talk about, I'm looking for this one. If I get a job offer here in Canada, how will that affect me? What can I expect? What should I be worried about? Does this affect my visa? How will it affect me?
It wouldn't. It's actually something positive, right? If you
Okay.
find a job, what you need to pay attention, I always mention to my students, is to keep track of the number of hours that you can legally work, depending on the permit you have and the program you're taking, right? Because, for example, if you take English classes or French classes, you're not allowed to work, right? That's something that the government of Canada established like more than 10 years ago. But yeah, so
Good.
I'd say just keep track of the number of hours. I know this is your responsibility as a student, not the employer, 100%. So Immigration Canada, if you exceed the number of hours you're allowed to work, Immigration Canada may, take actions against you, some sort of actions. But yeah, it's your responsibility as an international student.
Okay. So my advice on that is, and I love the way you answered that question, by the way. I found a job, and yay. Good for you. There's nothing to worry about there. Everything's legal. Everything's good. You've got your study permit here. You've been accepted to come to school here, which means you can also work here. And then, yeah, you just keep track of your hours, and you'll be just fine that way. Do you help people apply for visas?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. We do have different resources here at Cornerstone as well. We tell them we talk to them at every stage when we have the student advisors to help them find the right program for them, and then they can give general information about the requirements of a study permit application. And then I talk to them as well, to potential students or people who recently enrolled on how they can, apply for the study permits, giving them the strategies, a different type of resources. We do represent them sometimes for Immigration Canada as well. But yeah, there's a bunch of different resources, webinars. We have info sessions. So we do help.
We just got a question that came in about age limits.
Mm.
Are there, first of all, age limits for the college, and are there age limits for the visa?
For the college, no. We accept people like from I think 16 years old.
16, 17?
Yeah,
Not
16
sure.
for English classes and 18 for diplomas.
Okay.
Or
Oh,
if you're a high school graduate. There's no limit in terms of age. We've had, and I've met wonderful people here being in their 60s, 70s,
Yes.
and completely fine. However, for the visa application, that's a different story, right? You need to, the government of Canada would check your profile in the sense like, oh, if you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, why you want to take a diploma in Canada, right?
Yes.
Why you want to study a diploma in Canada? It really depends on the reasons you provide in your explanation letter, your SOP. But yeah, it is possible.
Good. I've had a lot of students that were well into their 40s, and a couple of them were in their 50s, and they were successful in their studies. They found work. They've all, if I can remember correctly, they've all gotten their PR. But it was a bigger challenge because I think they get fewer points once they're past a certain age limit. Is that right?
It is correct under some federal immigration systems. If you are over 31 years old, you don't lose points, but you don't make any extra points.
Yeah.
So the optimum age, I'd say, is when you are 20 to 31 years old.
Yeah.
That's the optimum. That doesn't mean that, you cannot become PR. It's just like, if you don't get points for age, you need to get points for other reasons, like maybe perfect English, speaking some French, and having with other people, what happens, they have like many years of a skilled experience, right?
Good.
Work experience, so they can compensate in one way.
Good. So what has your experience been like? How long have you been in Canada?
I've been here for 12 years.
All right.
Yeah.
And what made you come here in the first place?
I've always wanted to study something abroad,
Right.
because my father did, my sister did. So I was like, okay, it's my time. I remember watching TV series in English, with just reading the subtitles in English, trying to practice. So I was saying, I want to study something in English. I want to, have a life in English. I want to work using English.
Wow.
And so I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And where have you lived in Canada? Just Vancouver?
Just Vancouver.
All right.
Yeah.
And where did you go recently?
I went to Iceland.
So, one cold place to another. What did you think of Iceland?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Landscapes are amazing. They seem like another planet,
Yeah.
And interestingly, I found that many movies were filmed over there.
Yeah.
Whenever they try to say like, we are in Mars or we're in another moon or whatever,
Iceland.
It's an Iceland.
Yes.
Yeah.
And across BC, what's been your experience like in terms of people and culture and making friends, and what has that been like for you?
Well, great experience. What I love is the multiculturality of the city and the province. Everyone's super friendly. I've also visited some cities of the US, and they always say like, you get used to the West Coast style life,
That's
here
right.
in the Vancouver and BC. So life is more relaxed, I'd say. In other cities of Canada, even Toronto, I found like they live like faster, they want things fast.
Much faster.
Yeah. And when you visit, for example, New York or like
Yeah.
other cities, they're like, sometimes you may feel like, they're being rude,
Yeah.
but that's because I've been in the West Coast for so
Yeah.
long,
They're very chill out here.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've lived in Montreal, and it's just it's a different environment. I lived in Edmonton, Calgary. It's a whole different environment. We have a. I'm just reading a question here. Due to country condition, what is it? So, do you want to address this one?
Sure. I think the question,
Yeah.
okay, due to the condition of a country, what should I
visa.
do if my visa was refused, I
That's
think? Yeah, so you need to think something that, speaking of refusals, you need to review the documents, right? Like review your application. Do you submit a strong explanation letter? Does the program you want to take make sense with your profile? You know, with your skills, with your work experience, with your previous education, and then yeah, like you can reply as many times as you want, but I always suggest like first you need to fix these tiny things and then reapply. If you reapply using exactly the same documents, it's going to be the same result.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the questions that came in was, how much does it cost to come to the college? The only way that we can answer that question is by actually working with your agency and working with your advisor. They'll give you the latest information. They'll give you the right information, and depending on the time of year and depending on a number of other factors. So the only appropriate way to discuss costs and pricing is talk to your advisor. Because, for example, scholarships, that will differ from time to time. So pricing, we really can't talk about it here, but talk to your advisor. Another question that we get all the time is, how long are the courses? How long are the courses?
The shortest diploma is 8 months long, and then we have 12 months long, and then up to 24 months long.
Good. So when he says 12 months, you mean 6 months academic and 6 months co-op.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. Or 12 months academic, 12 months co-op. So again, the best information, talk to your advisor, and they'll clarify the length of the course that you want and the co-op expectations, the academic expectations. And by the way, we have rolling intakes, meaning we have intakes every single month. It's not twice a year or 4 times a year. It's every single month that we have intakes. So that's what makes Cornerstone, I think, very, very special that way, is that we've always got, it's never too late. You know, we've got intakes on a regular basis. I was at another school today visiting, and it was once every 4 months. And I know that some of the students were a little bit frustrated with that. I want to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to call it a show. Calgary. We are opening a new school in Calgary. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or?
I think you may know more about this.
Okay.
So I'll leave it to you.
I was wondering what you knew. So we're opening a school, and if I'm wrong, let me know if I'm wrong. The school will opening January of 2025. Is that correct? All right. So we are currently accepting applications. Registrations are open. Go to the website ciccc.ca or talk to your agent, and they will get you all the information you need to go and apply and live and work out of Calgary, Alberta. I lived in Calgary for a year. I absolutely loved it. It is a beautiful city. Banff is only about 45 minutes away. Banff is one of the most beautiful vacation spots in Canada and the US. It has some of the best skiing in the world. And so Calgary is a great option if you want to go live and study in Calgary. Calgary is only open right now, or starting in January rather, for ESL students and FSL. What is FSL? French as a second language. So if you want to improve your English or if you want to improve your French, Calgary is a great place to go and study. And obviously, if you really want to come to Vancouver, Vancouver is open for ESL studies only. We do not have an FSL program in Vancouver just yet, but I bet you we will very, very soon.
Yeah, coming soon. Yeah.
Do you want to say anything before we go?
No, I just want to thank you for the space, for the opportunity. I wanted to be in your channel like so long, but yeah, great. Thanks for the invitation. And I'm glad the information was useful. And please let me know if you have more questions. I know we have like 200 questions. It's very hard to answer all of them, but yeah, join us for the next webinar, next session that I have. We can share the information later on.
It'll be here. Thank you very much. I'm Martin Presse. This is Cornerstone International Community College of Canada. Thank you for watching. We'll see you very, very soon. Enjoy your day. Thank you. There we go. That was good. Down line. What time is it? 7?
It's 7:14.
7:14.